I only planned to hire someone for a few weeks, just until my wrist healed after the accident. I didn't expect the man knocking on my door to be Tariq Tall Younger, and the first black man who ever made me forget I was married. "You sure you're okay?" he asked, his hand steadying me by the waist after I nearly slipped. It was just a small gesture, but from that moment on, nothing between us felt ordinary again. You won't believe what happened next. Stick around, and if you've ever come close to crossing a line in your life, hit like and subscribe right now. Because sometimes, even the moments that never happen can stay with us forever. I wasn't planning to need help, but then again, I wasn't planning to fall either. It happened fast: a wet bathroom floor, a towel underfoot, a slip that ended with me on the cold tile, and my right wrist twisted at an angle it wasn't meant to bend. One ER visit. Later, I was in a brace, a handful of pain meds in my purse, and a doctor's warning: no lifting, no scrubbing, no weight on that hand for at least 3 weeks, which would have been fine if I didn't have 2 children under the age of 8. My husband Ethan is a firefighter. He's gone for 48-hour shifts and comes home looking like he's aged 2 years and 2 days. He means well. He loves the kids. But when he's home, he's exhausted. And when he's gone, I'm alone. So for once, I listened to my body, and I downloaded one of those apps, the kind where you can find someone to clean your house run errands, or even help with childcare. It felt strange, like admitting I wasn't holding it all together anymore. His profile photo didn't stand out at first. A simple headshot. Clean smile. Tariq, 29, experienced with kids, CPR certified, former dance instructor. I almost skipped him, not because of anything in particular, but because I wasn't expecting to hire a man. But the app rated him highly. Glowing reviews. Patient, attentive professional. And the moment I booked him, he responded within 5 minutes. That Friday afternoon, he showed up right on time. And the second I opened the door, I knew this wasn't going to be what I expected. Tariq stood there in a fitted black t-shirt, jeans, and sneakers. Tall, calm, his eyes warm but unreadable, like someone who's learned how to carry other people's chaos without letting it weigh him down. His smile was easy, effortless. "Claire," he asked, voice smooth but grounded. "That's me," I said, suddenly too aware of the laundry behind me, the toys on the floor, and the oversized brace on my wrist. He glanced down at it. "You okay?" "Mostly," I said. "Just a little broken." He chuckled softly. "That's what I'm here for." The kids peeked out from behind the couch. Within minutes, he had them laughing, showing off silly dance moves, chasing them in slow-motion circles through the hallway. I watched, leaning against the doorway. Something about him fit, like he belonged here somehow. Not in a loud way, in a quiet, natural way that I couldn't explain. I hired him that evening for 2 afternoons a week. Strictly practical. Temporary. That's what I told myself. But there was already a feeling growing in me. A flicker of something I couldn't quite name yet. And even if I didn't admit it, then I knew this wasn't going to stay strictly practical for long. It didn't take long for Tariq to blend into the rhythm of our days. He came in like he'd always been there, helping the kids with their shoes, folding laundry, without being asked, chopping vegetables like he belonged in our kitchen. Not loud, not intrusive, just steady. The kids adored him. Lily followed him around like a shadow, and Max wouldn't eat unless Mr. Tariq was the one handing him the spoon. I told myself that's what I hired him for, to make things easier. But I didn't expect the way his laughter would echo down our hallway. How his presence filled up the house, not just physically, but in a way I couldn't quite describe. One afternoon, I stood by the fridge, pouring a glass of water. Tariq walked by, reaching to grab something off the counter. Our fingers brushed. Not long, not deliberate, but it made me pause. A few days later, he brought in a heavy bag of groceries, sweat glistening on his forehead, his t-shirt clinging slightly to his back. I caught myself watching him too long. I looked away, pretending to check my phone. Then came the moment with the brace. I was struggling to adjust it. The Velcro strap kept slipping. Tariq noticed. "Here, let me," he said, kneeling beside me. I held out my arm, and he carefully took it in his hands. His fingers were warm, steady, and too gentle. He fastened the strap slowly, probably not needing to, but not rushing either. At one point, his thumb brushed the inside of my wrist just above the edge of the brace. Neither of us said anything, but we both felt it. He finished adjusting, gave me a nod, and stood. I mumbled a thank you, trying to ignore the flutter in my chest. That night, I lay awake in bed. Ethan was on shift. The house was quiet, but my mind wasn't. It kept replaying that moment, his touch, his calm voice, the way he looked at me like he saw more than just a struggling mom in yoga pants and a messy bun. It was just a touch, barely a moment. So why did it feel like more? The air conditioner died on a Wednesday, one of those muggy, unforgiving summer afternoons in Atlanta, where the air hangs heavy, like you're breathing through wet cotton. The kids were restless. I was sweating through my tank top. Even Tariq, who usually looked unbothered by everything, had a sheen across his forehead and a dark patch spreading down the back of his shirt. I walked into the living room with a jar of peach preserves, one of those store-bought things I never liked. But the kids begged for it on toast. I tried to open it, gripping the lid with my left hand, my only good one, but it wouldn't budge. I winced as my wrist brace brushed the counter. Tariq appeared beside me before I could ask. "Here," he said, taking the jar from my hand, his fingers brushing mine. "Let me." He turned the lid with one fluid motion, strong, sure. But when he handed it back, our hands lingered. Longer than necessary. And I didn't pull away. Neither did he. I set the jar down, pretending not to notice how warm my cheeks had gotten. He noticed. A beat passed a little too long. Then he looked at me, brows slightly drawn. "You okay?" he asked. "Just hot," I replied, clearing my throat. He stepped toward the freezer and pulled out a small ice pack. Without asking, he walked behind me. "Your shoulder looks tense," he said. "Mind if I didn't answer. I didn't have to." I felt the cold touch of the ice through the thin fabric of my tank top. Then his hand warmed large, pressing it gently into place. His other hand lightly adjusted the strap of my top, so the ice lay flat. His fingers grazed my bare skin, slowly, carefully, like he wasn't just soothing muscle, but trying to memorize the curve of my shoulder. I swallowed. "You didn't have to," I began. "I know," he said quietly. Silence fell like a weight between us. Heavy. Breathless. I didn't turn around. He didn't step away. For a moment it felt like we weren't in my living room anymore. Like time had stopped holding its breath along with us. Then Max yelled from the hallway. The sound broke whatever spell had started. Tariq stepped back. I exhaled. "Thanks," I said barely above a whisper. He nodded, walking toward the kids like nothing had happened. But I stood still. not because I couldn't move, but because something inside me had shifted, and we both knew it. The house was quiet, that kind of deep, warm silence that only happens after kids have gone to bed. I was in the living room, picking up stray toys, folding a blanket that had been kicked to the floor during movie night. Tariq appeared from the kitchen with 2 empty glasses. "Need help?" he asked. I hesitated, but nodded. "Sure." He walked over, crouching beside me to gather the crayons scattered across the carpet. His presence filled the space beside me, familiar now, but never quite harmless. I bent down to reach one under the couch. My tank top shifted as I did, just slightly. I didn't realize until I felt the air on my lower back. I straightened up, and at the same moment, my foot caught on one of Max's toy trucks. My balance tipped. Tariq moved fast. His hands caught me at the waist, steadying me before I could fall. For a second, maybe less, we didn't move. His hands were firm, grounding me. My body leaned into his, just enough to feel his breath catch. I looked up. His eyes were already on mine. Neither of us blinked. "Are you okay?" he asked, voice lower than usual. Yeah," I whispered. He didn't let go right away. I didn't ask him to. Time didn't feel real in that moment. The space between us, the energy, was loud and quiet all at once. Then, as if remembering where we were, he slowly dropped his hands and stepped back. I exhaled, shaky, unsure. We stood there facing each other, close, too close. No one moved. No one spoke. The room felt charged, like we'd crossed a line without stepping over it. He looked at me once more, then turned back toward the kitchen. And I stayed frozen. Not from fear. Not even from guilt. But because that single moment that almost was enough to rattle everything I thought I had under control. The night was warm. That soft, late summer kind of warm that wraps around your skin like a whisper. The kids were asleep finally. I stepped out onto the balcony with a thin blanket around my shoulders and a cup of tea in hand. The breeze was gentle, the sky clear, the kind of quiet that makes you think too much. I didn't hear him at first, but then the door creaked open behind me and Tariq stepped out, carrying a second mug. "I thought you might want a refill," he said, holding it out. Our fingers brushed as I took it. Warm ceramic, warmer skin. "Thanks," I said, barely louder than the breeze. He didn't go back inside. Instead, he sat down beside me on the bench, closer than usual, not inappropriate, just intentional. For a while we said nothing. Then slowly, the conversation unfolded. About long days, exhaustion, the kind of loneliness that lives quietly in a house full of people. I didn't mean to say as much as I did, but his voice was soft, his eyes steady, and something about the night made it easy to let words fall out. "I love them," I said, staring at the streetlights below, "but sometimes I feel invisible." He didn't respond right away. "Then I see you." I looked over. His expression didn't shift, not a smile, not pity, just truth. My eyes blurred. I blinked quickly, but a tear slid down my cheek. He reached up gently and wiped it with his thumb, barely touching but enough. I didn't flinch. I didn't thank him. I just looked at him. And without meaning to, without thinking, I placed my hand on his thigh. It was meant as grounding, maybe, a way to keep the moment real. But I didn't move it. And he didn't move away. He leaned in. I didn't stop him. His face came closer, slow, deliberate, until I could feel the warmth of his breath on my lips. My heart pounded. We were right there. Then far off, a car horn blared sharp, jarring. The moment cracked. We both flinched, like being woken mid-dream. I let out a soft, awkward laugh. He pulled back eyes, still searching mine. "I should go inside," he said, not apologetic, just steady. I nodded, pulling the blanket tighter around my shoulders. He stood, paused, then walked away the door, clicking softly behind him. I sat there for a long time after, not cold, not alone, but forever changed. The morning after felt quiet, too quiet, the kind of quiet that doesn't come from peace, but from something being held back. The kids were up early, as usual, bouncing with energy. I poured cereal, wiped spilled milk, tied shoelaces, all with a practiced smile and a hollow in my chest. Tariq arrived at his usual time. On time. As always. But something between us had shifted. He was polite, gentle with the kids, efficient, but he didn't meet my eyes. And I couldn't meet his. Not really. We moved around each other, like people walking on a frozen lake, careful, calculated, afraid to crack the surface. At lunch, we reached for the same cup at the same time. Our hands touched. Just briefly. We both pulled back a little too fast. A little too obvious. He mumbled something about needing to refill the pitcher. I said nothing, just stared at the sandwich I wasn't hungry for. That afternoon, I found myself cleaning with a kind of desperate precision, wiping down counters that weren't dirty, organizing drawers that didn't matter. Maybe if I could make everything look perfect, I could pretend everything was. Maybe if I acted like the perfect mom, the perfect wife, this ache in my chest would finally go away. When it was time for him to leave, he lingered by the door for half a second longer than usual. Then he said, "Do you need me to stay a little later today?" I looked up too quickly. "No," I said. "No, I'm fine." He gave a short nod. No smile, no softness. He turned to the kids. "See you later, team," he said, high-fiving Max and ruffling Lily's hair. He didn't say goodbye to me. And I didn't say anything either. I just stood there, hands still damp from washing dishes, watching the door close behind him. The silence that followed wasn't new, but now it felt louder than ever. He never kissed me. But somehow, he touched me deeper than anyone else ever has. Ethan came home Friday night, just past 7 p.m., smelling like smoke and exhaustion. He kissed me on the cheek, ruffled Max's hair, asked about school, made the usual jokes that made Lily giggle. I smiled. I stirred the pasta. I poured the wine. Everything looked the same, but I wasn't. That night, after the kids were asleep and Ethan had collapsed onto the couch, I sat in the kitchen alone, staring at my phone. One message typed, no name, just thank you for not going further. My finger hovered over send. Then slowly, I erased it. Monday morning came, like it always does. Tariq arrived same time, same steps, same calm voice greeting the kids. He didn't look at me. I handed him the check for the week. Our fingers touched. Too long. Too knowing. Neither of us said a word. He tucked the envelope into his back pocket, gave Lily a high five, Max a fist bump. And then nothing. No goodbye. No glance. Just the sound of the front door closing behind him. I stood still for a long time. Hands empty. Heart not quite. There was no affair. No kiss. Nothing to confess. But something had happened. Something real. Something that still lingered in the air between our chairs, in the space where our hands almost stayed, in the echo of a breath that never turned into a kiss. I tried to tell myself it didn't matter. But the ache in my chest said otherwise. It wasn't what happened that hurt. It was what almost happened, the proof that a part of me still wanted to be seen. Have you ever stood on the edge of something you knew you shouldn't want, and felt it anyway? Not because you were reckless, but because you were human. Share your story in the comments or just write, "I've been there." If this story touched something in you, hit like, subscribe, and don't forget to share it with someone who might need to hear it. Because sometimes the moments we almost live are the ones we never forget.